Game over. Would you like to continue? Y/N? Art and story by Mariella Villalobos. Read by Conrad Krausert. 1. The first death is the quickest. A whistle sounds, and he goes over the top. One more swell of the human wave. He runs through no man's land as shells rain down around him, filling the air with smoke and stinging earth as they explode. Out of the corner of his eye, he sees the raven, perched on the barbed wire. Its eyes are trained on him, and suddenly the ground beneath his boots is giving way, and he is drowning in mud. The brackish water tastes of metal and blood. Game over. Continue. Y/N. He blinks. The rustling blackness turns to blistering heat, and he finds himself standing in a shallow creek bed. He hears the dogs before he sees them, tearing through the trees. Their cries and howls are eerie, jaws slavering and snapping with the thrill of the hunt. He runs along the wet, slick stones, but the water is too shallow to dispel his scent, and they are faster. Above him, black wings flutter, and the raven is there, watching as the first hound catches him. The jaws at his neck are inexorable and ravenous. Game over. Continue. Y/N. 3. Blink. This time it takes him a moment to realize the blackness of the dissolve is gone, and that the dimness in front of his eyes is purely lack of light. He turns, casts a glance around. The space is cavernous, with the plinking of chains above him and dripping condensation the only thing his senses can pick up on. Nothing moves amongst the jumble of mechanical forms in the shadows. Instead of relief, he feels a prickling unease. There is a mere suggestion of fluttering wings high above him before the creature from the blackness is upon him. Slick, black jaws extend out of an eyeless face, tearing into him with relentless violence. Game over. Continue. Y/N. 4. Darkness again. He shakes his head to dispel the fog, and his eyes focus on the ground below his feet. He is standing in another abandoned space, though this one carries the distinct feeling of despair and cleaning chemicals. A hospital. Down at the other end of the hallway, lights flicker. The hiss of static from a nearby radio fills the air, and the hairs on his arms stand up with an uncanny prescience. Somehow, he knows the sound brings danger. To his mind, the static hiss takes on a distinctly corvine quality as a huge form materializes in the light. Its bulging arms dragging an enormous rusted blade, which the blood-splattered butcher's apron suggests is oxidized due to its almost continuous use. The being's head is completely encased in a triangle of metal, yet he knows it sees him anyways. The terror is acrid in his lungs as he turns and runs, but his legs are sluggish and so very slow, and the creature is suddenly there in front of him, swinging the blade with inevitable finality. Game over. Continue. Y/N. 5. Another blink. The dark is suddenly the metal of a door in front of him, which bursts open as he barrels through. The blowing snow leaves him blinded for a moment, but his eyes swiftly adjust. He runs, or tries to, only to find his body doesn't respond as expected, causing him to stumble. His limbs are wrong. Behind him, the men in pursuit are relentless, their faces masks of revulsion and horror. He falls to his knees and the circle gathers, 5 men in the snow. His gaze snags on the familiar black silhouette perched watchfully on the tail of a ruined helicopter. When he goes to speak, all that erupts from his throat is an inhuman sound. His failing vision is filled with an orange flare against cold blue, and he is burning, flesh bubbling and melting as he shrieks in agony. Game over. Continue. Y/N. 6. Blink. His ears ring with the sound of the shriek, until he realizes it's a wailing of sirens, and the colors of light shift. washing everything in alternating red and blue. Behind him is the twisted wreckage of a car, though the trail of wanton destruction in its wake stretches far beyond his vision. The raven seems to be absent at first, until the familiar black shape catches the corner of his eye, flapping as it lands on a power line far above the street. "Freeze!" He hears the command come, but feels his body move to run anyway. The resulting hail of gunfire is swift and cuts through him, and the scene, like a wipe. Game over. Continue. Y/N. 7. He wakes to the feel of the hooks in his flesh. His gaze swims. The demons before him are cloaked in leather, latex, and metal. The leader reaches out to touch him, and the metallic needles embedded in its flesh move as it speaks. How many times have we done this now? His mind seizes. Is this... Wait. He looks down at his own hands, and the edges are slightly blurred, subsurface scattering, rendering light? But still, the pixels are there, visible if he's truly looking for them. Around him, the image fractures, shapes becoming polygons before disappearing as he falls into white nothingness. The frame freezes and... Game over. Continue. What? And... 7. Are you sure you want to restart? All unsaved data will be lost. Restart. Y/N. 9. He finds himself in a trench, tension around him humming with the anticipation of the charge. He flicks his gaze to the men around him, and out to no man's land. Shaken. His vision is beyond familiar to the point of deja vu. The trench, the stench of unwashed bodies, and the chemical tang of exploded shells. The sucking mud around his boots as he waits for the whistle. The realization that he can't name how many times he has stood exactly here, seen this exact same moment, flickers through his mind, and the wave of horror and despair is a blackness great enough to swallow him whole. The whistle sound interrupting thoughts that slide away from him, slipping like water through his fingers. Something important. There was something... No time. The men around him are already moving. He goes over the top, one more in the swell of the human wave. He runs through no man's land as shells rain around him, filling the air with smoke and stinging earth as they explode. Out of the corner of his eye, he sees the raven, perched on barbed wire, its eyes trained on him, and suddenly the ground beneath his boots is giving way, and he's drowning in mud, the brackish water tastes of metal and blood. Game over. Continue. Y/N. At the crossroads, the raven sits on a rough wooden cross, a silent vigil over an open grave, and the still form laid out within it. The skies are thunderous gray and overcast. Fog obscures the end of the roads that recede in all 4 directions. The bird doesn't mind. After all, it has a job to do, and all the time in the world. Its eyes remain fixed on the shade trudging towards it on the road. It idly wonders why so many souls resist the call, when all roads, inevitably, lead here. Any of them could choose to stop, to look down into the hole in the earth and accept their fate. Few do, preferring to replay a litany of familiar horrors built from story fragments, whether actual or imagined, rather than face the unknown. It flutters its wings once, flicking the feathers indifferently. The figure's eyes appear to see it, gaze fixed and staring. Will this time finally be? The eyes fill with an overwhelming terror before the shadow flickers and disappears, reforming on the next road in the sequence. The march begins anew. Well, apparently not. Continue it is.